In this video, I'm going to show you a complete beginner-friendly tutorial to use the conversational AI from ElevenLabs to create effective voice agents. I'm going to show you how to create these agents yourself, and I'm going to walk you through all of the settings that you need to know. I'm also going to show you a specific use case for a voice agent. In this example, a doctor's receptionist, which you can use in order to ask certain information about previous appointments you had with the doctor.
Hi, my name's Jessica Wilson. Can you look up some information about my previous visit?
I'll help you look up your information right away. I can see that you had your first consultation with us on April 6th regarding potential laser treatment.
That can switch to a different language during the conversation.
Hello, this is the practice of Dr. Nguyen. How can I help you?
Hi, can you speak German?
Ja, natürlich.
And that is able to actually switch to a different agent, in this case the doctor himself.
Can I speak to the doctor? I have an emergency.
I understand you have an emergency. I'll transfer you to our emergency line right away.
I am Dr. Nguyen speaking. Please tell me what's happening so I can help you right away.
And that is even able to interact with your local hardware, like your camera, in order to see you mid-conversation.
Hi, can you see me?
Let me take a look at you. Yes, I can see you clearly. You appear to be a young man in your 20s or 30s wearing a light gray t-shirt. You're in what looks like a home office or study space with good lighting.
So let's just jump right into it.
So here we are at the ElevenLabs website. We have to click on this link over here. And then normally you would need to create an account. After you did that, you can click on Conversational AI. And then you can click on Agents. And here you can create a new agent over here. And we have to give this a name. Let's call this Doctor's Receptionist 2 because I already created one. And then we click on Blank Template, Create Agent. And here's our agent. Right out of the box, it comes with the standard language English. You can change the language of the agent over here. What you can also do is you can add additional languages like German or Vietnamese. That's the same thing I did in the last tutorial. And right away you can see that ElevenLabs will recommend you to use the language detection tool, but more on that later. The next thing we would need to configure is a first message that's over here. And this is basically the first message that the agent would say if you start a conversation. So we can say something like, hello, this is the practice of Dr. Nguyen. How can I help you? You can save this. What you can also see is this button over here. Since we have selected multiple languages, you can also select the different language in which you want the first message to be or the conversation to be. And you can click on this button over here and then it actually auto translates you this first message into the other languages as well. And now we can test our agent. Let's select English, test our agent. You can call agent.
Hello, this is the practice of Dr. Nguyen. How can I help you?
Hi, how are you today?
I am doing well. Thank you for asking. How can I help you today?
What I will notice right away is that he didn't pronounce my name quite correctly because it's a Vietnamese name and it's a really hard name to pronounce. So in order to fix that, we can use something called a Pronunciation Dictionary, and you can add it over here. We can add this dictionary by clicking this button. And then you can upload a file. As you can see, I already uploaded quite a bit. This file has to be in a specific format, either PLS, text, or XML. And for this, we can use the template from the documentation site. And for this, we can simply Google ElevenLabs Pronunciation Dictionary. And we can click on the first link. And then we can scroll down a little bit. And here we have this template. And in this example is using the word tomato. And here we have a so-called phonetic pronunciation. This is basically a standardized way to write down how to pronounce the word correctly. You've probably seen this before, especially if you try to learn a different language. And this is really neat, for example, if you have a non-Western name like me and you try to pronounce it correctly in an English conversation. So what it means that every time this word comes up in the conversation with the AI agent and it would speak a specific language, for example, in this case, English US, it would pronounce it exactly how it's written here. If you're unsure how a specific word is pronounced that you try to add to this pronunciation dictionary, then you can simply go ahead and go to ChatGPT, for example, and ask it how, oh, let me zoom in for you. How do I pronounce my name? And it will give you the pronunciation or the phonetic pronunciation of the word. What you can then do is you can go ahead, copy the template, and then use any sort of text editor of your choice. In my case, I'm using Visual Code. You can copy this code, and then you can simply add the word that you want the agent to pronounce correctly. So in my case, it would be my name. Let me just remove this. And then you can simply add it. I already have it right here. And then you can save this file and then you can simply upload it. Now I can add this pronunciation dictionary to my agent by clicking the button. Then I can select the file and then can save. And we can try this again.
Hello, this is the practice of Dr. Nguyen. How can I help you?
So this was slightly better. You probably couldn't really tell the difference, but I could because I'm Vietnamese, so it's a little bit better, but you get the idea. The next step would be to add a so-called system prompt, which is basically an explanation how the agent should operate. I have one prepared right here. So for this, you would do a little bit of prompt engineering. That's probably something that you heard before. So it's a method to create your prompt in a certain way, so it is organized in a structured manner, so it leads to the expected outcomes or behavior of your AI agent. In ElevenLabs, you don't have to be very thorough with this because in my experience, they work quite fine with very limited and small system prompts like these. So let me break this down for you. Maybe I can zoom in a little bit. So first you would need to specify a persona. This is basically the role of the AI agent in this conversation or in this scenario. The next thing is a task that you would define what the agent should do. In this case, help the patient and communicate positively and professionally. Then you can also specify some service information like how it should operate in a certain scenario. In this case, if you want to get some information, you can access the knowledge base for this. More on that later. The next thing I added is handling of patient problems. So if you have like a doctor's receptionist, maybe there are some patients that call and they have like an emergency or something like that. And then I also added some rules as to how it should respond in certain situations. And you can basically be very free here. What I would recommend you to do is keep this kind of format. This is called a markdown format. So you start every point with a sort of hashtag. And if you have like some bullet points, you can write it like this. But you can be very free with this. You don't have to do it exactly like this. You can just play around with this. You can be very free with these systems as long as you describe what you want in a very clear and concise manner. You can also add some system variables here. For example, you can click on this button here and then you can add certain variables that comes out of the box. For example, the time. So if you have something specific like booking an appointment, for example, you would want to take the time into consideration. So you can add this variable and then you can add it somewhere in your rules. Or you can also add some custom variables, for example, the name of the patient from the conversation or so. Then you can add this like by clicking new variable and you can give it a name like name of the patient or something like that. And then you can add some rules around that. I'm not going to use that, so I'm going to delete this. Like that. The next thing we can configure here is the large language model that we use. I would recommend you to use something from Claude, like Claude 3.5 Sonnet, for example. I just figured that, or in my experience, Claude just works way better than Gemini, and it's way more deterministic. And if you use any sort of custom tools or something like that, it just works way better. The next thing you can configure is the temperature. So large language models are inherently random, but it sounds really complicated, but bear with me. If you ever tried ChatGPT and tried the same prompt multiple times, you will notice that you will get different answers, even though you use the same prompt. That's because the response of these large language models are always somewhat random, and you can increase this randomness by increasing this value here. So let's say you want to have very creative answers from your agent for some reason. For example, you want like a funny or very random conversation. You can increase this temperature. I would advise you to just keep it here so it's more deterministic. So the answers of your AI agents are more consistent. Something that is quite relevant for our scenario is a knowledge base. So if you want the AI agent to have certain information about your scenario, then you can add these knowledge bases. You can click on this button to add a knowledge base. I already have a PDF uploaded here. And I can also show you what's inside of this PDF. So this is the file that I uploaded to my AI agent. This is basically just information about the doctor's practice, for example, the specialized field, like information about the facility, treatments that are provided at the doctor's practice. Also some general information like opening hours and contact information and information about first consultation, all of that stuff. So if you want, for example, you have a support agent or something like that, you need to give it some information about your products or services that you provide, then you can add this in this file or in such a file, and then you can simply upload it here. And if you do that, then it has automatically all of the knowledge that it needs to answer those kind of questions. And in order to enable this, you would need to click this button over here, and then you can save this change. Now it has access to all of your knowledge, and then we can simply try this out now by clicking on this button.
Hello, this is the practice of Dr. Nguyen. How can I help you?
Hi, when are your opening hours?
We are open Monday to Friday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. We are closed on weekends. However, in case of emergencies, we can be reached on weekends via our emergency telephone number. Would you like me to provide you with that number, or can I help you with anything else?
No, that's it, thank you. So as you can see, he had access to the knowledge within the file that I uploaded. So the next thing we can do is add some more capabilities by using tools. So as the name suggests, tools enable AI agent to perform any sort of action, and right out of the box you get this tool called end call, which is a system tool. This allows the agent to detect automatically during the conversation if you want to end the conversation. For example, if you say bye or something like that, it will end the conversation for you. And if you want to add any sort of additional capability, you can click on add tool over here. And here you can select from a list of system tools. So ElevenLabs provides 3 types of tools that you can use: system tools, client tools, and server tools. System tools come right out of the box, like this end call tool over here. You also have automatic language detection or transfer to AI agent, which enables you to automatically transfer the call to another agent that you have, or transfer the call to a human. So you can add a phone number to this, and then it would automatically transfer the call to a actual person that it can talk to. We can add language detection here, and then we can click on add tool, and then we can save this. And in the beginning, we added these additional languages over here. So now that I have this language detection tool enabled, the agent would be able to automatically pick up on a different language that I'm speaking, and then would automatically switch to the other language that I'm speaking if this language is available here. So we can test this out.
Hello, this is the practice of Dr. Nguyen. How can I help you?
Hi, sprichst du Deutsch?
Guten Tag, ich bin Herr Peterson von der Praxis Dr. Wie kann ich Ihnen helfen?
Bạn cũng biết nói tiếng Việt không?
Vâng, tôi có thể nói tiếng Việt. Tôi là ông Peterson từ phòng khám của bác sĩ Nguyễn. Tôi có thể giúp gì cho bạn không?
So as you can see, this was able to switch automatically to the language that I was speaking. We can now go ahead and also look at the call history. You can click over here, and then we can click on this latest call. And here you see a summary of the call that we just had. You can click on transcript and you can see everything it did or we said. And here you can actually see that the agent was able to pick up on the language that I said and automatically switch to that. You can even replay this conversation by clicking this button here.
Hello, this is the practice of Dr.
We can also look at the previous conversation that we had here, in which I asked for specific information about the practice. And here you can see he accessed actually the knowledge base in order to answer the question that I had. And you can even see the information that he retrieved here. This is exactly the information that he got in order to answer the question that I had in the previous conversation. So that's pretty cool. So the next thing we can configure is the voice. You can change the voice in this tab over here. And here we can simply add a different voice that we want to use. For example, I want to use like, let's say, Liam. Then can save this. What you can also configure is the TTS output, the text-to-speech output format. This is basically just your audio quality. In my experience, using the standard selection here is also fine. The best configuration is apparently this one, but again, in my experience, this configuration is already enough. If for some reason you need a better quality, you can just simply play around with this. Same goes actually for all of the configuration down here. If for some reason you want to configure the way your AI agent speaks, you can simply play around with these configurations and figure it out for yourself. It's actually really, again, it's actually really self-explanatory. The next thing we can configure is the analysis over here. So let's say, for example, you have a call with someone and you want to evaluate how that call went. If it was positive, negative, or so on, you can add these criteria here. Let's call this emergency. You can add a description here, like check if the conversation was a medical emergency. Then we can add this criteria here, and it would highlight this in my conversation history. We can save this. And then we can test this out.
Hello, this is the practice of Dr. Nguyen. How can I help you?
Hi, my eyes are really itchy. I had like a treatment before and I cannot really even open my eyes. It's really bad. I'm kind of panicking.
I understand you're in distress and experiencing severe eye discomfort after a previous treatment. Given the urgency of your situation and the fact that you can barely open your eyes, I strongly recommend calling our emergency weekend number at Lawyers 699 Weiss.
Okay, so if we go to the call history now and look at this call, you can see here that he evaluated this call as an emergency. The next thing is the widgets. So as you can see here, you have a little widget which you can call instead of going to test agent. You can also call your agent here.
Hello, this is the practice of Dr. Nguyen. How can I help you?
So you can also add this widget to your website if you have one. So for that, you can simply copy this code here. So let me show you this with my dummy website. I have like a, wait a minute, I have to open this up. Oh, not like that. So this is the spoof website that I created about this doctor's practice. So if I want to add this widget, I can simply go into the code and add this somewhere in this line of code, somewhere here. And I can save this and I can just reload this. And as you can see, I have this widget over here now, and I can also call my AI agent again.
Hello, this is the practice of Dr. Nguyen. How can I help you?
And I can also configure like how this should look. We'll go up here and then I can go down here. I can change the color of the circle, or I can use a custom image. For this, I can simply click image and I can upload a image. In this case, I have this eye icon over here and I can save this. And then I can simply reload my website. And as you can see here, now I have this custom icon. Now I want our doctor's receptionist to be able to look up previous informations about the patient. For this, we can simply add another tool. And now we need to create a custom tool here. And there are two types of tools which you can add. One is the webhook and the other one is a client tool. The webhook is basically just a connection to an external API that you can set up, and it can send some information to that external API and get some information back as well, and then use that information for a certain function. In this case, we can access a external database, and then we can get the information that we're looking for, and then we can give that back to our patient. A client tool is basically a tool that you can run on a local application, like for example an app or like a desktop application. If you want to know how that works in detail, I did that in my previous video somewhere over here, where I created Jarvis from Iron Man, the personal AI assistant. But for now, we're going to use the webhook, and we're going to create a function called check patient info. And then we have to give it a description as to when he uses this tool. So I already have the description right here. So use this tool to get information about the patient, use the name of the patient to retrieve the data about the previous visits of the patient had at the doctor's practice. And that we need to add some parameters to this function, like the name of the patient. We can add that down here, we can click on this button and we can say like first name, the first name of the patient, and then we say last name, the last name of the patient, and then we can add this tool. Oh, of course we have to get the URL from the API. For this I prepared a make.com scenario over here, and here I have a webhook, and then I can click on this scenario here and I can copy this to the clipboard, and then I can insert this here, and then I can add this tool. I can save this. So what this essentially does is it simply retrieves information from a Airtable database and gives it back to the agent, and the database looks something like this. Here we have a patient that is called Ryan Johnson. He had his previous visit at the 1st of April. And here's some information about his last appointment. So the patient had a laser treatment to correct problems with his vision. He was given some painkillers and a cream for his eyes. Well, I misspelled this actually. For faster healing. May experience slight itchiness for up to a week. Is totally normal. Okay, now I have to save this change actually. And if we go back to our AI agent and then test this out.
Hello, this is the practice of Dr. Nguyen. How can I help you?
Hi, my name's Ryan Johnson, and I previously had a eye treatment at your office, and it's really itchy, and I just wanted to make sure that everything's fine.
I'll help you check your previous visit information right away, Mr. Johnson. I can see from your records that you had an argon laser treatment recently. The itchiness you're experiencing is actually normal and was expected. It can last up to a week after the procedure. This was mentioned in your post-treatment instructions. However, if you're particularly concerned, or if the itchiness becomes severe, we can schedule a follow-up appointment with Dr. Nguyen. Would you
No.
like me to arrange that for you?
No, that's fine, thank you. Goodbye. So if we look at our call history now and we go to, oh, wait a minute. Failed apparently, okay. It was an emergency, and he actually checked my appointment details. And as you can see here, he was able to retrieve it, and he got me the exact and correct info. So that's pretty cool. So let's say I want to directly talk to the doctor because I don't want to discuss my emergency with the receptionist. For this, I actually prepared a different conversational AI agent, which embodies the doctor over here. We can go back to our receptionist and we have to add another tool for this. We can click on Add Tool. And in this case, we click on Transfer to AI agent. And if you want to transfer the call to a real person, you can click on Transfer to Human. For this, we would need to set up a Twilio account and then set up also a phone number for that. I'm not going to do that right now, so I'm going to use Transfer to AI agent. And then I'm going to add a rule. In this case, I'm going to specify the doctor. And then I can also give it a condition. For example, if there, let me zoom in here, if there is an emergency or the patient asks for it. And then we can click on Add Tool. And then we have to save this. We can test this out and we can click on Call AI Agent.
Hello, this is the practice of Dr. Nguyen. How can I help you?
Hi, I have an emergency. I would like to talk to the doctor because of that.
I understand you have an emergency situation. I'll transfer you to our emergency line right away.
I am Dr. Nguyen speaking. Could you please let me know what's happening? I need to understand your emergency to help you properly.
So as you can see, this already worked quite fine. You can also add some more sophisticated condition, but in order for the doctor to assess us, I want him to be able to see me. And for this, I'm going to use the client tools. For this, we have to go back to our Dr. AI agent, and then we have to add another tool. We click on Add Tool, Custom Tool. And in this case, I'm going to add a client tool. Since I want him to access my webcam in order to see me, I'm going to call this Interpret Camera Image. And I have to give it a description again. So it says, use this tool to see the patient. I want to wait for the response because he has to process the image. It says 30 seconds. Then I have to give it a parameter. I call this focus. This is where he should focus his attention to when he sees me. So I have to give this also a description. So it says a thing in the image that you want to focus on to see more clearly. So basically you just describe what this parameter is about, so where he should focus his attention to. I also gave him some like example here so he knows exactly how to use this parameter. Now we can add this tool by clicking this button again and then save it. And for this I also prepared a Python implementation that is able to connect my AI agent to my webcam. Here we are in my Python implementation that allows me to talk to my AI agent locally from my PC. And for this, you can simply go ahead and copy the Python documentation from the ElevenLabs documentation website. You can simply Google Python ElevenLabs and then you can go to the first link. And then you will have this sort of template code that you can simply copy and paste exactly how it is into your Python implementation. And if you have that, in order to connect to your personal AI agent that you created, you would need two things. You would need the agent ID of your agent, and then you would need your ElevenLabs API key that connects it to your account. These two things you can find in here. So if you go to your agent, and then here you have this sort of unique string. This is the agent ID, and the API key you can find down here. You can click on API keys and then you can create one, and then you can copy that. And you can either copy it in here or do it like me and create like a .env file. I'm not going to go too much into detail how this works because I already did that in my previous video. Again, if you want to see how it works, you can just watch my previous video. If you do that and you run this code, you will be able to talk to your AI agent through your local implementation, similarly to how it was with the widget, where you can talk to your agent from a different source instead of just clicking on test agent. In my case, I also added some client tools here, which is able to access my local webcam. So previously we defined this client tool, which we called Interpret Camera Image. If you run this code locally from here, and then you can define a corresponding function, and then you run the AI agent locally, it will have access to the code or the function that you define locally. So it would be able to run your code. In this case, this code accesses my camera image, like right here. And then I use from OpenAI the capability to interpret that image. And that result is returned back to my AI agent. Or let me just zoom a little bit closer in here. So I get my camera image from my local webcam. This is then interpreted by an OpenAI model, in this case GPT 4.1. And the result of this interpretation is then returned to my AI agent, and then he knows actually what he's seeing basically. Again, I'm not going to go too much into detail here because this is supposed to be an ElevenLabs tutorial and not a coding tutorial. The purpose of this is just to show that you are able to run like a client tool that is able to interact with your local hardware. If you want to see in detail how this particular function works, you can comment down below and I will make a tutorial how to actually create the function that is able to access your camera. But for now, we can just proceed by trying this out. So here I have now my camera open, and all I need to do is start my Python implementation.
Hello, here is Dr. Nguyen.
Hi, can you see me?
Let me take a moment to see you clearly. Yes, I can see you clearly. You appear to be a young adult male with neat dark black hair that's medium length and partially swept to the right. You're wearing a light gray or beige t-shirt that fits well, and you seem to be in good physical shape. You have a clear complexion and appear to be in an indoor space with good lighting. How can I help you today?
Yeah, my eyes are kind of itchy. Can you take a close look at them?
Let me take a closer look at your eyes. I can see your eyes clearly now. I notice they appear somewhat irritated. Your eyes are almond-shaped with dark irises, and I can see some redness in the whites of your eyes, which could be related to the itchiness you're experiencing. Have you been experiencing any other symptoms besides the itchiness? And how long has this been bothering you?
That's actually it. Thank you for the assessment. Bye. That was a long one. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, props to you. What I didn't mention was that ElevenLabs is actually quite expensive in comparison to other AI voice tools like VAPI or Retail AI, but it comes with certain functions that the other tools do not provide, like the usage of client tools or the automatic language detection or all of the voice configurations that you can do. And if you have a specific use case in which you need those functions, it somewhat makes it worth it. And if there's any other AI tool which you want me to cover in a future video, just comment down below. And if you're struggling with any sort of AI development or implementation, you can get in touch with me through the contact information in the video description down below. I might be able to help you out. On that note, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.